Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. This story sort of under-discussed, talking about the fires that destroyed the Palisades.
This call will be recorded.
And, hello? KTLA reporting the other week on the confusion, I guess, that LA firefighters had when they pulled out of fighting a fire in the Palisades that was still smoldering, a fire that subsequently reignited.
The report says firefighters were ordered to leave the smoldering burn site that eventually became the deadly Palisades wildfire. The LA Times is obtained text messages from 3 firefighters at the scene of the Lockman fire. That fire started, of course, New Year's Day and then smoldered until January 7th, when historic winds reignited it into the Palisades fire. Federal prosecutors say that fire was intentionally set by Jonathan Rinderknecht. On January 2nd, a battalion chief ordered firefighters at the scene to pull out of the area because the fire was contained. One firefighter said the chief had been told it was a bad idea to leave because the fire was still smoldering and could be rekindled. The LAFD has declined to comment on the text messages.
Yeah. Now, I know that it wasn't climate change, it was arson, as per usual, exacerbated by poor land management, arguably. And you've got a guy that's looking at half a century in prison, in custody. But still, the competence, the leadership level of the LA Fire Department, this another element that calls into question, in addition to the emergency response that night. You don't want to get Karen Bass off the hot seat here, pun intended. And also, this is sort of instructive because we have mayors like Karen Bass in places like Chicago, and now in places like New York, forthcoming, Mamdani, in places like Seattle, Katie Wilson did end up winning that race, defund the police, ideological apparatchik in the vein of a Mamdani. And since they're identitarians as well, all of them, and so many more big city mayors, this is particularly instructive because you'll remember what the focus was for the mayor in L.A., Karen Bass, for the senior leadership of the fire department that was led by people like Crowley, whose main job, and by the way, she took the fall for it, of course. Hey, I can do identitarian politics until it's, my butt that's on the line, and then, I got to have you fall on the sword, and that's exactly what happened. But it was all about the DEI assistant chief, Christine Larson, all the Christines, Christine Larson, and the chief, Kristen Crowley, who talked about LGBT. She's the first LGBTQ plus chief. The goal is recruit more women, recruit more gay firefighters. Like that matters. The Department of Water and Power boss, Janice Quinones, who talked about being powered by equity. I mean, all these people. Quinones was a good example of what you had, the senior leadership of all of the important public response agencies and, key infrastructure organizations.
You call it powered by equity, and I know that it's been really important for the DWP to put an equity lens on everything.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the number one thing that attracted me to this role. Coming from the communities that I come, seeing what I've seen through my career in utilities and through the military. I've been in the Coast Guard 19 and a half years now, so I got 6 more months to qualify for my 20 years, which was my original goal.
Wow, congratulations, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Not anymore. Thank you maybe for your previous service. Then your service at LADWP, less so. less of a thank you. And boy, it turns out when you're all focused on identitarian politics and recruiting this category of person and this category of person that has little to do with competency and more to do with identity, then there is great equity because everybody's house burns down. For more on this story and a few others, pleased to be joined again by Susan Crabtree, who is RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent. She's also the co-author of Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Perfect segue. Susan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, I mean, it's nice, especially with the newly minted mayors from coast to coast, New York to Seattle, and frankly, even Jacob Fry in Minneapolis, too. It's nice to revisit this as more information becomes available, like that KTLA report that I started with and some of the reporting you've done, because, you know, this is the danger. It may not come in the form of a fire or an arson, but this is the danger when you put people in charge like Karen Bass or Brandon Johnson or Katie Wilson or Zohran Mamdani.
That's exactly right. Karen Bass was basically blackballed from the consideration for Biden's vice president, because she had gone to Cuba and trained with the Marxists and Fidel Castro in Cuba as a young person. So, you know, I covered Karen Bass in Congress. She was the chair of the Black Caucus, and she refused to answer to reporters. She was, just like a lot of members of the Black Caucus, very safe seats, you know, that we're talking about gerrymandering in California. They create these very safe seats, so there's no accountability. And the press, you know, it took Spencer Pratt, a reality TV star who had his house burned down and his parents' house burned down in the Palisades fire, to really push the officials and to get this information out there. All of this information is really originating from Spencer Pratt, because the media in California is nothing but access journalism, where they suck up to the politicians, and that's how they get their stories. And I am infuriated living in California that there's not a more diverse press out here. But I guess the New York Post is coming to California with the California Post, so there is some hope of accountability journalism on the horizon. But right now, all of this came out because of Spencer Pratt. He got the text messages first. The LA Times is just following him, and because they're forced to. Mm-hmm. The fact that these texts came out that these LA fire were told to leave the Lackland fire that was smoldering still, and they were also told, this was a subsequent story that Spencer Pratt was talking about over the weekend, they couldn't bulldoze certain areas to look for the fire because of an endangered plant.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that sounds about right. And so then the consequence of that sort of, pathological empathy for plants is, as you report, a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor doesn't have the funds to rebuild her home. I mean, and I know what that's like, dealing with insurance companies in after a disaster. And, you know, and this happens all the time in disasters, and these stories are not told, which is now, I mean, did somebody just also, did they just not suffer the loss of a home and everything associated with that? But they can't stay in the community they've been in for so long because, of course, the economics of staying there have changed.
It's heartbreaking. That testimony that I listened to late last week was absolutely heartbreaking. You had 90-year-old people. One of them had suffered stroke after losing their house and being moved to another location. This was their kids talking about their in-laws, and they're uprooted at the twilight of their lives. Right. From the homes that they had lived in for decades and the communities surrounded. They're uprooted from their friends. You know, I know from my mom, who's 84, you know, you start going to funerals at that point. You don't have many friends left. So those friends are so important to your mental health and your even physical health. And these people are suffering so much. And Gavin Newsom has the audacity to go down and be part of a global climate change and blame this fire on climate change. I am fed up with that excuse. I have written about it in my book. We have a whole chapter on the wildfires in the book. This one was arson, this Palisades, but the Eaton fire was caused by the utility, SoCal Edison, and most of the fires in California are caused by the utilities, and the utilities are in bed with the Democratic politicians, funding them and giving them jobs like Quinones, the fire and water chief. She worked at PG&E before she worked at the LA Water and Fire Department, and she was the one that was responsible for not filling that reservoir again.
Mm-hmm.
So she's directly responsible, and this is all about money in politics in California and DEI, as you mentioned.
What is
similar story in the Secret Service?
What just on the Palisades? I think we checked in a couple of months ago, and it's been more. I think it was about a year at that time, and it was like 6 houses are under construction or have been substantially rebuilt out of 2,000. What is the status of the rebuild? It's
similar to what you're just mentioning. I did a story with my colleague, my White House correspondent colleague, Phil Wegman, and we did a story that most of the work was done by FEMA and the EPA. And so they're taking credit, Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass have taken credit for all this debris removal, but that was FEMA, and that's because Trump lit a fire under FEMA and EPA and told them they had to do this. They had to move as quickly as possible. And then the permitting process has been a slow roll.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a county process, and then there's a city process that the city, one of them's going better than the other. If you want to learn about the details of that, we have a story. If you go on Real Clear Politics, search my name and Phil Wegman's name. It's a detailed story about which was better and all of the details on that. But it is appalling that they're trying to take credit for Trump's work on that. And the fact that Spencer Pratt is the one, and now these Senate investigators are coming. It was Senator Ron Johnson and Senator Rick Scott. Senators from thousands of miles away from California are the ones doing the job to really investigate this when, the California senators, Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla, don't want to touch it.
Yeah, the reality stars will save us, huh? Spencer Pratt. That's. It's wild. But just in terms of, and I think I overshot it. I think it's been about 10 months since the fire. But
yes.
But are you have so many high profile people there, including James Woods and so forth. I'm surprised I haven't heard more from some of them publicly calling out this permitting process and how slow it is to rebuild and the things that people are going through. I know you mentioned some of the testimony recently, but I'm wondering when this reaches more of a fever pitch.
I think you've got to provide a forum for them, and that's what they're starting to do with this Senate hearing that came. It wasn't that public. I don't know why they don't have Mel Gibson. He lost his home as well involved. He's a conservative,
right?
And he could talk about whether I don't know if they're rebuilding or not. The sad thing about it is the insurance companies aren't covering enough of the fire compensation for many people to rebuild. So they're selling their land to Chinese investors, and that's troubling. And there's all kinds of machinations on part of the Democratic politicians to try to introduce multifamily home units to the area and change the nature of the community. So that effort has been pushed off because of the outrage for now, at least. But there was beginning in the state legislature, which is super majority controlled, Democratic controlled, to introduce that. But there was some public outrage about that, so that's stalled for now. But it is just beyond sad. And the fact, I mean, I just can't get over it that Newsom would go down to Brazil and do his climate change act. He did that after the Paradise Fire. This is in 2017. 84 people died in that fire. That should have been the canary in the coal mine that stopped all of this non-forest management. The utilities don't maintain, they're negligent, but Gavin Newsom decided he's going to bail out that utility because they gave $750,000 to him and his wife, Gender Justice Films, PG&E.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was asked recently by Jonathan Karl about these characterizations of him as Patrick Bateman, which I take credit for being the first to call him Patrick Bateman. He's a dead ringer, not just the look, but also the personality, and by that I mean psychopathic, and that's what this Brazil thing is. I mean, a guy who will just, walk over the destroyed lives of thousands of families in the Pacific Palisades, and despite having a guy in custody charged with arson, looking at the rest of his life potentially in prison, and will go down and do a photo op in Brazil. I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is.
He did the same thing in China. We have this all in our book. He was showboating in China a couple of years ago, and then, of course, he had the President Xi come to San Francisco and cleaned up that city of all the homelessness miraculously. But, we have in our book, Fool's Gold, that he sold out the state of California to China because he was supposed to get, this wonderful deal. It was supposed to be great for both commerce. It was supposed to be mutually beneficial. But actually what happened is he brought in a bunch of Chinese companies that undercut the American solar companies, including Solyndra, and then he goes out to China and Shanghai and is trademarking his own wine into China. I mean, this man, you don't know the depths of the depravity of Gavin Newsom, and the fact that he is a front runner for the Democratic nomination for 2028, it should give everybody, it should be a red flashing light. And I hope that you would get the book Fool's Gold, my book with Peter Schweitzer's top researcher, Jed McFadder, because the Washington Examiner called it a takedown of Gavin Newsom. We did a 2-year investigation, and I don't even know if we scratched the surface, but there are so many blockbuster exclusives in this book, and it just goes to his full, like you said, sociopathic nature. I mean, he lied about how he got into college, and he's continuing to do it. He said baseball got him into his baseball prowess.
Well, yeah, that was after being a poor black kid and learning the game of basketball too. I saw that recently. Yeah, and make his way through to, the tough streets of where did he grow up? Palo Alto,
Marin County, Redwood City. It's so gorgeous there, but I mean, he turns this thing. His parents were divorced, but I went through and I asked his office after that silly interview, where it was, I mean, it became a meme that I actually reported afterwards that he tried out for the baseball team. The baseball team, the people that were actually on the team came to me and said, before my book, and said, it's outrageous. We don't even remember him being on the team. He's not on the official roster at all. But I did have one baseball player tell me recently, and I wrote about it, that he lost his Rolex in the dugout and was freaking out and asked everybody to help him.
Well, sure. I mean, that was, that was a priceless gift from the Getty family, I'm sure.
Exactly.
I mean, it is.
Come on.
It's just, this is something. Well, I mean, we have a governor in Illinois who, runs around characterizing himself as being raised by a single mom. And
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's just slightly misleading and intentionally so, of course. Susan Crabtree, RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent. Again, the book, Fool's Gold, the radicals, con artists, and traitors who killed the California dream and now threaten us all. Fool's Gold, if you want the full dossier on Gavin Newsom, as we've been discussing. Susan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks so much.
And she joined us in Pro Answer Line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. You probably know I help business owners fight back against the IRS. But today, I'm talking to those who haven't filed their returns. I know what that feels like. The sleepless nights, the unopened mail, the pit in your stomach every time you see an IRS envelope. You're not lazy. You're overwhelmed. Here's the truth.